Perfect. Hey, okay. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, chat. I was kind of worried we might not get him today. We were just watching your videos, to be honest. Ladies and gentlemen, I do want to say I'm here with the esteemed Bradford Cohen, I believe, out of Florida.
Yes.
You're someone who I've gained a lot of respect for, just in a legal perspective. Just on, you know, I mean, I report a lot of news, and a lot of times when I report these news, a lot of times I'm like, this guy's screwed. It's over. You know what I mean? And I'm going off a headline. I'm going off a police report. And just lo and behold, it feels like anytime it's your client, there's always more to the situation. And it feels like more than likely ends up in a dismissal or, as of recently, like an apology for a error.
Yeah, so, we've been doing good so far. Everything's been good. This year's been really great. Actually, we've been to trial 4 times, and 3 not guilties, and then 1 civil trial that we won. I think $275,000, and the original offer was like 20 grand. So
wow.
We've done well this year, and we continue to work very hard for our clients. So it's been a good career and good year so far.
Okay, so I'm and this is a personal question too. I've known you in the capacity of a criminal defense attorney. How closely do you work on civil cases, or do you do civil cases as well? Like, I usually kind of like keep them in like 2 different buckets, but
Sure.
it appears that they might be very well overlapped.
Yeah, so our firm does criminal and does civil. When it's a trial, I'll do the civil trial. I don't do a lot of the background work on the civil cases. I don't do a lot of the discovery. At the very beginning of civil cases, I'll handle the discussions with the other side and some of the initial hearings, the motions to dismiss and things of that nature. But the discovery stuff and the motion practice on civil stuff, I really don't get too involved in. That's usually my law partner. But when it comes down to the trial, I will usually try the civil case. And just for some background, when I first went out, when I first left the state attorney's office, I was working in a civil firm down here in Florida that did a lot of contract work, a lot of litigation, a lot of trials. So my first year out, I probably did, I don't know, 20 trials, maybe 18 trials with that firm. And then when I went out on my own, that's when people started to know me more for the criminal stuff, because I started winning a lot of cases. So the first or second year I had my own practice, I think I won 9 or 10 cases in a row. So I got like an award, like a triple hat trick award. And then kind of things took off from there, and word got out, and my client list grew, and I was lucky enough to get to make relations with a lot of very popular individuals that if they got in trouble anywhere in the country, they would generally call me, and I would handle their cases for them. Some in the press, and some not in the press. It just depends on the case and depends on what they're accused of. But generally, when someone gets in trouble, I get a phone call at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I try to do my best to fix whatever the situation is.
That's so interesting. And by the way, so I definitely want to, like, I feel like I've heard your name so much, and now I almost go to your page for so much analysis, because we're making so many assumptions on so many different cases, and a lot of times we obviously lack the law degree, but we lack the experience that's there. But before that, would you consider yourself, because there's 3 guys in Atlanta or Georgia, actually, I don't know if it's necessarily just Atlanta, and there's a few people who I've heard consistently helping out, whether it's rappers or just people of high, high importance, wealthy individuals,
popularity. Sure.
Exactly. I have a list of super attorneys, and these are attorneys that, listen, you're really trying to get out your case, you need them. You're on that list. So for Georgia, and you're the only one I have for Florida, right? So you're the only one I have for Florida. I'm trying to get more familiar with other people who operate in Florida. In Georgia, I have Brian Steele,
Drew.
Drew Finland, and Sado. And I think I'm saying his name right. Sado. I think Sado. Those are the three there, and I'm like, hey, if you call yourself balling, you got all these cars, and you get in some trouble, you better get one of these guys if you're trying to make sure you're gonna.
Sure.
Yeah, you're the guy for Florida. How did you develop that reputation? How did you even meet some of these guys? I feel like even the recent case with uh what's my guy named Rod Wave, and I read
Sure.
it and I was just like, he's done. Like I was over here, I was like, yo, oh, the Rico case is coming. This is bad. This is over. I'm like, Jesus Christ, how could he get himself in this position? And then just systematically in 2 weeks, I watch your page and I'm like, this is a bullshit case. How?
Yeah, and by the way, I connect with a lot of attorneys around the country that I consider, very, very good attorneys. I've referred cases to Drew in Atlanta, and I've referred cases to Chesnoff in Los Angeles. There's a lot of individuals that I would refer cases to if I don't have the time to either do them, or if I feel like the client would be better served by someone who has better connections than I do in an area maybe that need those connections. So if a case is like, if a case can be resolved without going to trial and it's in an area where I know someone that can handle a case, I'll refer that case out. Because like I said, for me, it's about the client getting the best service that the client can get. It's not about me getting a case for XYZ in, Iowa, or, oh, hey, someone got in trouble in Mexico. They want me to fly down to Mexico. If there's a local lawyer there that I know that can do a better job for that individual, I'll refer them to that individual. I might go down to coordinate it. I might, supervise it, but ultimately I'd want the best person for that job. So how I got involved is, like I said, I just worked hard. I built up my reputation over a period of time. I've been doing this for 27 years. And I was able to make really good connections. In 2005, I was on a show called The Apprentice with Donald Trump.
Really?
So yeah, so in 2005, I was obviously still practicing, and I still had a variety of NFL players and baseball players that I was representing. And then after I was on that show, I stayed in contact, obviously, with individuals I met on the show, and including the president. And then I would, from that show, I got invited to a lot of different parties and things of that nature. I made friends. I was going to the Playboy Mansion. I think I went to Playboy Mansion 3 or 4 times, and I met a lot of people
Did you
there.
go to a Diddy party?
And no Diddy parties. No, I never been invited to a Diddy party. And but I was able to make a lot of good connections, and I'm always, if I can do a favor for somebody, I always go out of my way to do a favor for somebody, not expecting anything in return. But that's really has been my motivating kind of the way my career has developed. Instead of doing marketing or advertising or cheesy TV things, if someone got in trouble and I could help them without it being a big deal, I would do that. And then one thing led to the next, and someone would say like, "Oh, I remember Brad helped me out of a situation," and they might refer me to someone else, and that's generally what happens. And like I said, also for attorneys, if an attorney's just coming out of law school, I remember when I first opened my office, if an attorney was coming out of law school or coming out of the state attorney's office or the PD's office, I would give them free office space for the first year just to get their feet wet and kind of get their, make their bones. And those people went on to do amazing things. They're judges, and some of them are state attorneys, the head state attorneys in other districts. And so I always maintain those relationships. And I think it's very important in any career. I mean, that. So like in any career, if you don't maintain your relationships, you're not an up and up guy. I don't think you go very far. But I think if you're, a handshake guy, and I think that you're honest with people and you maintain relationships, not just when you need them. You don't call people just when you need them. You call them to check on them and make sure everything's good and follow up. I think that behooves everybody's career in in any field, your field, my field, being a doctor, any kind of thing that you can, nurture relationships. That's how, you make your career go forward, in my
Hey,
opinion.
two things. And again, I'm asking as the the regular hip hop fan, but we've heard a lot about like because when we hear about when I even look at you as like a super attorney, and I look at some of these guys, and I'm like, how the hell are they able to make certain things happen? There's this one, and I know my chat's gonna tell me like who it is. Someone was making a story about like pretty much the legal process. He said he knew he had the right attorney when his attorney said, "Hey, oh, actually no, I think I was interviewing big folks from Chicago who he was charged with like a murder, but it was self defense. Anyway, he was like he knew he had the right attorney when his attorney said, "Hey, me and the judge, we're gonna be golfing this weekend. Go home, don't worry about it too much." And I said that would be pretty good. Okay, I want you to react to that, but also a client. It doesn't matter if it's Kodak. It doesn't matter who. When they walk in and you see the police report, the police said A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Do you say to them, or do you want them to say, "Yo, I did that shit, but please get me off"? Or do you even ask that question if you did it?
So the first part of that question about relationships with judges or prosecutors or anything like that. I mean, it's always important. Most of my relationship with judges and prosecutors, it's not that, they will, okay, they're going to, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's nothing like that. It's just when you're in a courtroom that is a fair and unbiased courtroom and you're a good attorney, they let you do your work. And that's the key. I had a federal case, Rod Wave's brother, actually, or Rod Wave's, what he considers his brother. I had this federal case in Tampa with him about, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago. And that judge was a very difficult judge. She really wasn't, and she was a Trump appointee, by the way,
Yeah.
but she really wasn't allowing the kind of work that could be done in a case to be done. We ended up getting a not guilty anyways on the federal charge, but it was a difficult, it was a difficult time. It was a difficult, I think it was about a week and a half or a week. And it was a difficult case. And it was, like I said, a tough judge makes your job more difficult. A judge that kind of understands everything that's going on in the courtroom, how a court case evolves. It's very fluid. You're in a trial. There's objections to be made. There's evidence that may come in or may not come in, and that could change the trajectory of the case in your favor or against you. So all those things kind of happen. And I think that the relationships that you have, like I said, they don't go out of your way and do you a favor, but at the same token, just having that, knowing that there's a kind of a mutual respect in the courtroom, that I think that benefits the client and benefits the jury as well, because they get to see real lawyering going on. So that was the first part of the question. Well, now I forgot what the second part of the question was. What was your second part of that question?
The second part is, and I've seen this from I think Ti interviewed Sado, and he was saying, do you ever take on clients where the client tell you like, "Hey, I'm gonna be real with you, I did that shit."
Oh yeah. So right. So yeah, I mean, it just depends on your defense. There's a lot of times you have to know everything that went on, right? In order to come up with a defense. There's sometimes it might be, a case where they're being charged with murder, but it might be a self-defense. It might be a stand your ground case. There might be legal defenses to things. There's all sorts of things that go on that sometimes you need to know everything and sometimes you don't. And if I don't need to know it in order to provide a defense, I'm not going to start asking my client questions that I don't have to know in order to provide them a defense. So it's kind of a yes and no question, depending on the defense that's going to be raised, depending on the facts of the case, depending on the evidence, if there's video evidence and telephone evidence, things of that nature. That's really where it goes. But for most part, especially today, in today's day and age, there's video evidence, telephone evidence. There is not a harder time to get not guilties than right now, because people, they travel around with their phones and Their phones will show where they were or where they weren't at a certain time. Phone records, texts. People are posting more than ever on videos, which I keep. It always shocks me, but it seems to be more of the younger guys now that just they post themselves committing crimes, which no, if you told someone 20 years ago, and I represented real guys 20 years, I mean real guys like from Philly and Chicago, that these are the type of guys that you do not want to meet in the wrong situation. If you told them 20 years ago that, kids would be posting themselves committing burglaries and stealing cars and doing all kinds of crazy shit, no one would believe that would be true. But, it happens all the time.
Hey, speaking of which, as you mentioned that about like phones and all that type of evidence, so just looking at it from like a technological perspective, which again, I imagine a case with, hey, GPS says you were here, GPS puts you on the scene, this and third. It reminds me eerily of, and that's what I was googling on this screen over here, the YNW Melly case.
Sure.
And were you ever approached to like be a part of that case? And
Sure. So I originally represented Melly at the very beginning of the case, myself and another individual. His name's Jason Williams. And we were both on the case. And what happened was Jason ended up becoming the prosecutor, the state attorney in New Orleans. So he took that job. And I think Melly wanted to go in a different direction, ended up hiring some other attorneys. There was no ill will or anything like that. I had a theory for the case. I don't know if he liked my theory as opposed to a different theory. I saw the trial, the original first trial. I think some things that were done in that first trial probably could have been avoided, and it could have been a better result. But it was a hung jury, and that's a win on a murder case in anybody's view. I just think that it probably could have been done a little bit different. His new attorney, I was asked to be brought back on the second trial. The problem is now I have to be able to dedicate, especially in a murder case, I have to be able to dedicate 100% of my office to that case, especially one the size of that. And I represent an individual in San Francisco on a murder case. I don't know if you know it. There was an individual who invented Cash App, and he was a victim of a crime out there. And I represent the individual who's accused of that in San Francisco. So it was like, I only take a certain number of cases. I'm not going to take more cases than I can handle because that's just a recipe for disaster. And that's why I have a reputation of doing a good job. So I just didn't have the bandwidth to take it. But his attorneys right now, I think, are doing a spectacular job. They're filing the right motions, the same motions that should have been filed on the first case. I think they filed on this one, and they're excellent attorneys. I mean, I know them very well, and I think they're going to do a good job for Melly. But like I said, my schedule fills up, my dance card fills up very quickly. And some things are reported and some things aren't. Like we just represented Kai Cenat in that dismissal in New York. Some things.
wait. Are you? And I'm sorry for cutting you off. So I think when people think attorneys, they also think you operate in a jurisdiction,
Yeah.
or a certain jurisdiction, and
Sure.
you're a Florida attorney, so you wouldn't deal with matters outside Florida. You've mentioned San Francisco. Now you're mentioning New York. Is the law book in each state seems to be different. How do you get acclimated? Do you have someone there work with you, or you just?
So it depends on the state. I'm licensed in New York. I've had, my family's from New York, so I grew up in that area. I grew up in Massachusetts, but my whole family's from New York. So I clerked in New York for a New York Supreme Court judge who's now a defense attorney. Ironically, he went back to being a defense attorney. He's really excellent. He works with an individual, you probably know him, Arthur Ayala, who is a big time New York City attorney and a great attorney. And the judge I clerked for is a phenomenal attorney. And that's kind of where I learned a lot when I was clerking for him. But I'm licensed in New York. I'm licensed in Washington, D.C. We've handled cases in Washington, D.C., and New York, and federal bar in Puerto Rico. But there is a economic barrier to me representing individuals in different states, depending on what the charge is. Like, you're not going to hire me for a DUI in New York
Okay.
City. So, and I get a lot of people that are like, hey, I got a possession case in New York. It doesn't pay to hire me.
Well, why did Kai bring you on, or in your opinion, as much as you can speak? I know there's attorney-client privilege.
Yeah. I think again, it just relationships, and he knew that, that I get things done, and the relationships I have with individuals that knew him, and great kid. It really unbelievable case that he even got, that they were even considering to file charges on him, in my opinion, after I looked at all the evidence.
Could you explain? Because some people might not
Sure.
necessarily know.
So they were proposing to charge him. They arrested him, and they did charge him, but not formally, with, inciting a riot and all these other kind of, felony offenses surrounding a giveaway for like PlayStations. And he put it on his post that he was going to have a giveaway for these PlayStations. And it was a perfect storm, right? It was like during the summer, no one had anything to do. Kids were not in school. And what you would anticipate, maybe, 100 kids showing up, 3,000 kids show up. And there were some elements that were among the 3,000 that weren't there to get free PlayStations. And they just, started destroying stuff. And then they blamed Kai for that. And, that was a tough case because I just didn't think that they had enough evidence to go forward with it. Ultimately, the prosecutor who was handling the case was a real gentleman. I talked to him several times about it. We went back and forth, and we ended up resolving the case with a dismissal. It wasn't even a dismissal. It was just a decline, meaning they were declining filing the charges. And I think that worked out. The whole case.
Wait, so they never filed formally?
No, they never filed formally.
Wow.
He never had to go to court at all. And like I said, I think he's a good kid. And when I watch, and I when I first took the case, I wasn't really super familiar with who Kai was, and the type of things that he does, and the type of charity work that he does, and things of that nature. And over the course of the case, I became very familiar with him. And he's a funny kid, and like I said, I think he's a good kid. So I'm glad that worked out well for him. But again, not a press case, no big deal. And I don't like, a lot of people are like, oh, you take this for the press or that for the press. I really don't take people call me when they don't want press, and there's plenty of cases that I've handled where there's absolutely no press around it because I get it dismissed before it even gets filed, or I take care of a situation where there's some sort of civil lawsuit. And that probably is a good segue into why Diddy should have resolved that case with Cassie prior to them filing that lawsuit.
You've said that many times.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna play a little bit of devil's advocate, and I'm also introduce what what the culture and the people are saying. So if you're the attorney in that situation, well, people are gonna say, well, obviously it could have been resolved before it ever hit the press, but isn't resolving a almost like it's like a smoke signal, like, yo, yeah, I'm guilty, I just don't want this to go any further. Right? Like maybe
I get it. Maybe, so you kind of hit the nail on the head in terms of a lot of, once cases are filed, I think when you resolve them after they're filed, sometimes that's true. The problem here was, so a lot of times people will, good attorneys, and when I say good attorneys that are familiar with how this works, the Gloria Allreds of the world, and Gloria Allred is a pretty well-known civil attorney in California, and she files a lot of these sexual harassment cases, things of that nature. Someone like her usually types up a letter first, sends a letter over and says, a threatening letter. Hey, I represent XYZ. and you already know what went down, and this is what we're demanding, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. She actually did the Tiger Woods, one of the mistresses of Tiger Woods. And the whole deal with behind that was, okay, we're going to get this resolved. It's going to be quiet. It's going to be an NDA, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously that's not what happened, because he got hit with a bunch of other stuff. But that's generally what the first kind of wave is. And then after that, they're like, hey, listen, we're really serious. Here's a complaint we're going to be filing tomorrow. And then the complaint lays out, in Cassie's case, if that's the complaint, which I guarantee it is, that they sent over to Diddy or his team or whatever.
You think they sent the whole complaint over?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, if you're looking to get $35 or $40 million in a settlement, you are typing up a complaint and you're sending it over to the other side and saying, hey, we'd like to resolve this, but here's what we will be filing, next week if we don't hear back from you. And I don't know why, but maybe people didn't take it serious. I have no idea. But if I was the attorney who read that, and my belief is he has an excellent attorney, and I mean excellent, if it's the attorney that I'm thinking of. But I don't know if it was, something
I thought it was it Ben Brafman who
yes.
met with her? Yeah.
And I, just to be completely transparent, I love Ben Brafman. I think he's one of the finest attorneys in New York City. I think he's super, super smart. I've referred cases to him before. We've talked about cases together. He's given me, great advice as a young attorney. I just think he's a spectacular attorney. And I like to think that the way that I conduct myself in court is because of all of these older attorneys that took time out when I was younger. I almost said little. When I was younger, that really helped me with cases and gave me good advice. And there's a slew of them. And I was friendly with F. Lee Bailey, back in the day, and got great advice on cross examinations. And I was just very lucky, like I said, to garner some really good relationships. But
let me ask you this question though.
Sure.
So, like, if I'm the client, I'm Diddy, right? Granted, it's rumored that I'm a billionaire, all this type of stuff. I don't know how the negotiation process goes, but it's like, yo, this chick wants $50 million. Like,
yeah.
Even if you're my lawyer, how do you even like wrap my mind around it to say, Sean or Brother Love, whatever you want to call him, you're better off settling than going to, because I might be so arrogant and pompous. I'm like, before I pay her $50 million, I'll fight her to death.
Yeah, and listen, there's some instances where that is a smart move, and I've said this before. I didn't make my reputation on settling cases. I made my reputation on hurting people in the courtroom and making sure that this individual gets hurt enough where the next person who's thinking about doing that says, hey, let's not do that, because that's not a good idea. So there are times, it's just like Kenny Rogers says, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. You have to have a conversation with the client, and you have to tell that client, hey, listen, this is the complaint that's going to be filed. Like, I don't know, let's go through your, the people that could support you. Let's go through your sponsorships that you may lose. Let's go through the businesses that have these in the contract, they have some sort of morality clause, or like all these things that where morals would come into play and you'd lose money on. Add that up. Does that equal $30 million or 35 million? Now let's tack on another 5 million in attorney's fees, because that case doesn't go away tomorrow. You need a team of attorneys on a case like that to handle it properly. You need expert witnesses. You start going through litigation fees, just that alone, you're looking at $5 million, $4 million, and then you start adding up what you're going to lose in sponsorships, what you're going to lose in business deals, and the possible ding on your reputation. Not to mention, once she files that complaint, it's open season. It's literally, Elmer Fudd's come out of everywhere and they start hunting you down. And that's what happened. So instead of settling this very quietly, making it go away, no one would have said anything. An NDA would have been filed, and that would have been that $35 million.
Does his video
Now,
come
all
out
of a
though?
sudden,
Let's say it was leaked by Cassie. We're gonna get into that because
the video.
the video of him putting hands on Cassie, which,
Sure.
which by the way, I think you're one of the only people I've watched be able to separate emotion from actual legal analysis, because everyone's so caught up that video is so emotionally charged. Imagine you pay that money. Okay, let's go. This is Dream World, of course. Okay, he pays
Sure.
the settlement. Does that video come out?
My opinion is it doesn't. I think that came out for a very specific reason, and I talk about it on my Instagram. I think that the video came out because I think an indictment's going to come out in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and that indictment
2 to 3
is going
weeks.
to name. I think so. I think by the end of June, I think you see an indictment come out. That's my guess. Yeah.
Do you think they're in the process of grand jurying everything now, or do you think, because I read your comments, or do you think they're still at the point of maybe arm twisting with Cassie to say, give us everything you know and we'll give you this immunity deal because you.
Yeah, listen. The Southern District of New York is not a district that sits on their hands. My opinion is that, like I said, I think that they will move fairly quickly. I think the reason why he's not leaving the state of Florida is because they probably told him, don't leave the state of Florida, and if you do, we're going to arrest you on a complaint. I think all those things are happening.
Wow.
And like I said, I'm relying on my experience, my 27 years of experience. I'm not just guessing like, oh my God, I just got out of law school and I've never had a case like this before. I've had cases like this before where there are warrants issued, where there are items taken. They already have enough probable cause to get a warrant. They have enough probable cause to get a warrant. There's a saying that you can indict a ham sandwich. If they have enough probable cause to get a warrant to search homes in 2 different states, my guess is that they will have enough to indict. And my guess is that the reason this video came out is because I think in the indictment, Cassie's name, well, it probably won't be her name. It'll probably be unindicted co-conspirator 1. I think that they will be talking a lot about what happened between him and her and what they did together. And I think that's why this video came out, because the only way to quote unquote save face in this, and it may be true, by the way, it may just not be saving face, it may actually be true, is to say I was a sex slave, I was powerless, I wasn't the person I am now, this was a different person, I don't even recognize the person I was back then. All of the things she's saying, in my opinion, feels like that's where this is going. And like I said, I could be wrong. 99% I'm not. I just think that that's what's going to happen.
I agreed with you. By the way, number one, you're the attorney, and I think you're brilliant. And I think your thought with 27 years of experience is worth more than all of us just assuming. But also, let me put this into the air as well, right? If we read through Cassie's complaint, Cassie literally in her complaint admitted, like she literally admitted, hey, I'm the one who procured all these gigolos, these prostitutes, all these other people that was involved in the freak offs. Yeah, I did it at your advice, at your, direction. That might be hard to prove unless it's like, hey, get 15, whatever for tonight. I may have gotten drugs. I may have gotten prostitutes. I may have gotten other women. You may have said, hey, who's that girl you were posting up on Instagram with? See if she want to get into the freak off. She's been really involved in procuring a lot of these people. Here's my thing, though. Do you think that it would get to the level of her having to leak the video to maybe secure what would be an immunity deal? Because I do think the government would look absolutely crazy even considering indicting Cassie. They would look absolutely nuts. They would have to write this whole new narrative and have to give us so much more information for us to think Cassie, and this is just from the complaint, think that she was not a victim or not someone who was either someone under duress or something else. What do you think?
No, I agree with that. I don't think they could in any world indict Cassie with the evidence that's out there, with the complaint, with her knowledge. But then, and not only that, I don't know how great of a case they can put together against Sean Combs
Without her, right?
without her cooperating, right? You're talking about someone that is by his side 24/7 for years and years and years during when alleged shootings happen, when alleged something else happened. This is the person who's sleeping next to him. She literally is Sammy the Bull, right? So like you can't get any closer to Sean Combs than her. So how do you put together a case without her? And you don't put together a case, you can't put together a case, without giving her immunity. So if she hasn't procured immunity yet, I would guess that it would be forthcoming. I just don't see how you put a case together without it. I mean, certainly there's some aspects you could put together, but I think that she's the linchpin.
Can I ask you this question? Because this has been confusing to me too. If I'm Diddy, okay, cool. Yeah, granted, I should have probably paid you off before you filed the complaint. You did, but I did pay you off. Why is your attorney almost in a narrative sense basically jumping out to put out statements every time something corroborates that you're the victim? Isn't that odd to you? You got paid. Why is the attorney then saying, hey, see what we told you guys? It's happening. You got paid. Shut up. Shut the fuck up. Like, go split that.
He's protecting his client. Listen, I think that this is a lesson in for her attorney. It is a master class in how to handle these type of situations. He's handling it. If I'm her attorney, I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm making sure that everyone understands she is a victim. I'm making sure that everyone understands she had no power, no control, no money, all these different things. And again, that's not to say that's a false narrative. Maybe that's true. Everyone gets, when your emotions get involved in this thing, everyone is like texting me, oh, you're for this or against that. I am strictly looking at it from a legal perspective. Everything that this attorney could be saying is 100%, it could be 100% true. It might not be. It might be that, she was partaking in things willingly. I don't know. But I can tell you what he's doing and how he's going about it. It's a master class in what to do if your client is being swept up into these things. It's what Giselle Maxwell's attorney should have been doing. And whether or not that's true or false, like I said, I don't know. But the same narrative could have been used in other cases. And again, it might have been more attenuated in those other cases. You might not have had as much proof in those other cases that individual is under control and direction of the lead defendant.
Hey, by the way, I'm so with you. Which, by the way, also once we get into the Ghislaine Maxwell stuff, I do believe that in some weird twisted way, I think she felt she was still exhibiting some loyalty. That's why she didn't completely turn heel. Cassie completely has turned heel. Not saying she's not a victim, and that's the distinction. I was watching you explain it through all your comments, and people were like, "No," which I completely got. Let me read her statement here, and. Sure. I read this before you even got on here, and I said to my chat, I wish I had a highlighter because there's certain, obviously her lawyer helped her draft this, but there's certain lines that you clearly could tell what she's trying to say. She says, "Thank you for all the love and support from my family, friends, strangers, and those I've yet to meet. The outpouring of love has created a place for my younger self to settle and feel safe now, but this is only the beginning. Domestic violence is an issue," and then this is a line right here. "It broke me down to someone I never thought I would become." I thought that was an important line.
Yeah.
You want to jump in?
You picked out all the lines that you're picking out are the lines that are important, right? Those are like I said, this attorney drafted, I guarantee the attorney drafted it, and he used very specific language, very specific items. It would be impossible to indict this young lady. I don't see how you would. And then the video, coupled with the video, it's an impossibility to indict her. And the way that she is saying these things, that's what leads me to believe that in this indictment, there are going to be some crazy, crazy, crazy allegations.
I agree.
And she's saying, I'm not the same person. Like, the complaint is one thing. Oh, I procured people. I did these things. I think that the actual indictment itself is going to go into very, very detailed paragraphs about her involvement. And like I said, it might not specifically name her because it might be unindicted co-conspirator, but I think it's going to go into very specific involvement with different issues and different things that are surrounding the sex trafficking and possible drugs and things of that nature. I think it's going to be very, very specific. And this is a way, and like I said, it may be completely true that she was under his control. Yeah. And that's why I keep saying those things. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's sad because like when you're analyzing this and you're trying to just be objective and a lot of times, like, when you're being objective, you got to remove the emotion, because the emotional reaction to seeing a man beat a woman like we seen on that video is nothing that needs objection or anything else. It's just like, this guy's disgusting. He needs to be penalized. But we're not just at the point of saying this guy needs to be penalized. We're trying to, extrapolate into what could be coming or forthcoming in terms of like criminal charges. By the way, the next paragraph, which what I noticed about this whole statement, the last line of every paragraph is very telling. I'll read the next paragraph. Thank you to everyone that has taken the time to take this matter seriously. My only ask is that everyone open your heart to believe in victims the first time. Here we go. It takes a lot of heart to tell the truth out of a situation that you were powerless in.
Correct. That's it. So like all those lines, those are the key lines. And like I said, to the normal, just the average day person reading that, they're like, okay, as soon as I read that, I knew, I those things blew up right at me as soon as I read it. And I was like, okay, like, this is what I'm trying to tell everybody. That all these things came out after I posted the first time, right? And I'm like, I guarantee, and like I said, that video is a horrible video. I don't condone it. I don't think domestic violence is smart or good or anything like that. The images on that video are
disgusting,
disgusting, shocking. All of the above. All the above. What I try to do is I try to look at situations and I try to analyze them in the legal perspective. And I get flack for this all the time. Sometimes I'll talk about Hunter Biden's case, and people that like Trump tell me, oh, I can't believe that you're talking about Hunter. I think Hunter Biden's case is bullshit. Like, I mean, Kodak was charged with the same thing. I thought that it was bullshit that he was going to get a diversion program was crazy. I thought that was crazy. But the case itself, that, I was a crack user when I filled out this form and I put down that I'm not addicted to drugs on this federal form. I think that's bullshit. And I also think Kodak's case is bullshit. Kodak's federal case is bullshit. So,
hey, by the way, there's a million. I think me and you could do a whole 2 hours just about Kodak. There's been so much misunderstandings or just what's been reported in the media, because what happens is, and you know this by now, a police report comes out, there's, especially TMZ and other entities and shit, even we're in the business of it. We have constant, we hit all these police precincts with like queries for certain names. When the name comes back that there's an arrest, that's the narrative until an attorney or they get arraigned, and then we start hearing what might be a defense. So an artist or anyone looks super guilty. And me and you, we've been there.
Correct.
Exactly.
I'm very, listen, I fight for my client. Kodak's different. I mean, I fight for all my clients. If someone talks shit about my clients, I come after them
Yeah,
like I would
I
come
like that.
after someone. If someone talks shit about